Boy leans over mother in coma to say goodbye, but she opens her eyes and Ethan held his mother's icy hand, preparing for the most difficult moment of his life. 3 months had passed since Emily slipped into a coma after an accident, and the doctors had lost all hope that she would ever wake up. "I love you, Mum," whispered the 9-year-old boy, his tears falling onto the white hospital sheets. It was then that he felt a slight pressure on his fingers. Emily squeezed his hand and slowly opened her eyes. Ethan almost shouted for joy, but something in his mother's gaze made him hesitate. "Who are you?" she asked in a hoarse voice, looking at the boy with an expression of confusion and fear. The words hit Ethan like a punch to the stomach. He tried to smile, thinking she was still confused from the time she had spent unconscious. "It's me, Mom. Ethan, your son." Emily tried to move away in the bed, her eyes wide with panic. "I don't have any children. Please leave my room," she said, her voice trembling. Ethan felt as if the world had collapsed around him. He ran into the hallway looking for a nurse, shouting that his mother had woken up. Within minutes, the room was full of doctors and nurses. "Calm down, son," said Dr. Anderson, a middle-aged woman with graying hair. "Your mother needs time to readjust." "But she said she doesn't know me," Ethan sobbed. The doctor sighed deeply before explaining. "Ethan, your mother has suffered a very rare condition. The coma affected specific parts of her brain responsible for memory. She has completely lost memories of the last 10 years. "What does that mean?" asked the boy, though he already feared the answer. "It means she doesn't remember her marriage, her pregnancy, or you. To her, she is still a 22-year-old young woman, single and with no children." Ethan collapsed into a chair in the hallway, unable to process that information. His grandmother Ruth came running to the hospital as soon as she heard the news. At 70 years old, she still had the energy of someone much younger. "My grandson, it's so good that she woke up," said Grandma Ruth, hugging Ethan. "But Grandma, she doesn't remember me," Ethan cried in her arms. Grandma Ruth felt her heart tighten. She had raised Emily after her parents died in an accident when the girl was just 15. She knew her granddaughter better than anyone. "Let's talk to her, my love. Maybe we can help her remember." But when they entered the room, Emily had the same reaction. She recognized her grandmother, but was confused when Ruth mentioned her grandson. "Grandma Ruth, I don't understand. Why does everyone keep talking about children and husbands? I'm 22 and I live with you. I work at Frank's fabric store," said Emily, confused. Grandma Ruth exchanged a worried look with Ethan. Emily truly believed it was still 2014, 10 years ago. "Dear, you were in an accident. You lost your memory of some years. You married Michael and had this beautiful boy, Ethan," the grandmother explained patiently. "That's impossible," Emily shook her head. "I never dated anyone seriously. And a child. I would know if I had a son." Ethan tried to approach the bed, but Emily shrank back. "Please, don't let him near me. I don't know this child." The words cut Ethan's heart like a blade. He ran out of the room, his tears blurring the hospital hallway. Grandma Ruth followed him, trying to console him. "She will remember, my love. She just needs time." "And if she never remembers, Grandma? What if she never loves me again?" Grandma Ruth didn't know what to say. She herself was struggling to hold back tears. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Michael arrived at the hospital 2 hours later. He had been on a business trip to Chicago when he received the call from Grandma Ruth. The 35-year-old man ran through the halls, still wearing the wrinkled suit from the meeting he had abandoned midway. "Where is she?" he asked, breathless. "Calm down, my son," said Grandma Ruth. "I need to tell you something before you go into the room." When Michael learned about the memory loss, it felt like he had been punched in the stomach. He and Emily had met 12 years ago and had been together for 10. She was his entire life. "Can I see her?" he asked, his voice choked up. "You can, but she won't recognize you. To her, you've never met." Michael entered the room with his legs trembling. When Emily saw him, her reaction was even worse than with Ethan. "Who is this man?" she asked, hiding behind the sheets. "Please, get him out of here." "Emily, it's me, Michael. Your husband," he said, trying to approach. "I'm not married," she screamed. "Grandma Ruth, please make him leave." Michael stepped back, his hands shaking. He had imagined 1,000 scenarios for Emily's awakening, but never this one. Seeing the fear in the eyes of the woman he loved was unbearable. "I'll be in the hallway," he murmured, leaving the room with tear-filled eyes. Ethan ran into his father's arms and they both cried together. Grandma Ruth watched them with a broken heart. That family she had seen grow and form was being torn apart by something none of them could control. Dr. Thompson, the neurologist in charge of the case, called Michael and Grandma Ruth for a conversation. "Her condition is extremely rare," explained the doctor, a middle-aged man with thick glasses. "She has what we call selective retrograde amnesia. The trauma specifically affected the areas of the brain responsible for memories from the last 10 years. "Will she get her memories back?" asked Michael, desperate. "It's possible, but I can't guarantee it. Some patients recover some memories over time. Others, unfortunately, never recover them completely." "What can we do?" questioned Grandma Ruth. "The most important thing is not to force it. Aggressive attempts to make her remember could cause more damage. It requires patience and a great deal of emotional care." When they left the office, they found a woman about 40 years old talking to Emily. It was Rebecca, the younger sister of Emily's mother, who had distanced herself from the family years ago after a fight over an inheritance. "Rebecca, what are you doing here?" asked Grandma Ruth, surprised. "I heard my niece had woken up. I came to visit her," replied Rebecca with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Aunt Rebecca," Emily smiled for the first time since waking up. "It's so good to see you." Grandma Ruth felt a tightness in her chest. Rebecca had been close to Emily during her teenage years, before the estrangement. It was natural that Emily would remember her, since those memories were intact. "How are you feeling, dear?" asked Rebecca, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Confused," admitted Emily. "Everyone keeps saying I have a husband and a son, but I don't remember any of it. It's very strange." Rebecca cast a mischievous look toward Grandma Ruth and Michael, who were watching from the doorway. "Perhaps you don't want to remember," she said in a low voice. "Sometimes our minds block out things that have hurt us." "What do you mean?" asked Emily, intrigued. "Nothing, dear. Just that you should trust your instincts. If you don't remember, it's maybe because you don't want to remember." Grandma Ruth entered the room immediately. "Rebecca, can I speak with you outside?" The two women left, leaving Emily even more confused. In the hallway, Grandma Ruth confronted her sister-in-law. "What are you doing?" she asked with controlled anger. "I'm just comforting my niece," replied Rebecca with false innocence. "You're planting doubts in her head. Why? Perhaps because someone needs to protect her. Have you ever thought that maybe she blocked those memories for a reason?" "You know nothing about the life she's built," said Grandma Ruth, furious. "I know she never seemed truly happy the few times I saw her in recent years," lied Rebecca. "Maybe this is an opportunity for her to start over." Michael approached, having heard part of the conversation. "Rebecca, I must ask you not to interfere. Emily needs time to recover, not more confusion." "And who are you to tell me what to do?" she retorted. "You're a stranger to her now. Maybe you should accept that." Rebecca's words hit Michael like arrows. Although he knew she was being malicious, part of him feared she was right. What if Emily never loved him again? What if she really was happier without them? Meanwhile, Ethan had taken refuge in the hospital chapel. At 9 years old, he still didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew his mother didn't want him anymore. The boy knelt on the wooden pews, saying a silent prayer. "Please, make my mother remember me," he whispered. An older nurse, named Margaret, found him there crying. "What's wrong, son?" Ethan told her everything, between sobs. Margaret, who had worked at the hospital for 30 years, had seen many tragic cases, but the suffering of that boy moved her deeply. "You know what I think?" she said, sitting next to him. "The love between a mother and her son is the strongest thing there is. It might be hidden now, but it's still there." "How do you know?" asked Ethan. "Because I've seen many miracles in this hospital, and the greatest of all is love. You just need to be patient and keep loving her, even if she doesn't remember you now." Ethan felt a little better with the nurse's words. He decided he wouldn't give up on his mother, even if it took a long time. In the following days, the hospital routine settled in. Emily was physically recovering well, but her emotional situation was complicated. She felt lost, as if she had woken up in a life that wasn't hers. Rebecca started visiting her daily, always planting doubts about the family she couldn't remember. During one of these visits, she said something that left Emily even more disturbed. "You know your great-grandmother Dorothy had memory problems late in life, right?" commented Rebecca casually. "Yes, I vaguely remember, but what does that have to do with anything?" "Nothing, probably. It's just that she always said she was afraid of forgetting the people she loved. She said she'd rather not remember an unhappy life than be forced to relive it." Emily became thoughtful. She truly didn't remember choosing to get married and have a son. Was it possible she had been forced into a life she didn't want? Ethan, for his part, didn't give up trying to get closer to his mother. He started leaving little drawings in her room when she was out for tests, simple drawings of a mother and son together, with colorful hearts around them. Emily would find the drawings and feel strangely touched by them. There was something in the simplicity and love of those images that stirred her, even without understanding why. "Who is leaving these drawings?" she asked Nurse Margaret. "A very special boy," replied Margaret. "He loves you very much, you know." "But I don't know him," said Emily, confused. "The heart knows, my dear. Sometimes the head forgets, but the heart always remembers." Emily didn't know what to do with those words. She felt a strange mix of curiosity and fear towards the boy who called her mother. One afternoon, when Emily was alone in her room, Ethan appeared at the door. He had convinced the nurse Margaret to let him try one last time. "May I come in?" he asked timidly. Emily hesitated, but something in his voice made her nod. Ethan approached slowly, like someone approaching a frightened animal. "I know you don't remember me," he said, sitting in the chair next to the bed, "but I remember you." "What do you remember?" asked Emily, curious despite her fear. Ethan smiled for the first time in days. "I remember when you used to sing me to sleep. You always sang 'Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star' and made funny faces that made me laugh." Emily felt something strange upon hearing that. The song was familiar, but she couldn't connect it to the boy. "I also remember when you taught me how to tie my shoes," Ethan continued. "You said it was like tying a present's bow, and that I was the most beautiful present you ever received." The boy's words touched something deep inside Emily. She felt her eyes well up without knowing why. "And I remember when you had nightmares," said Ethan more quietly. "You dreamed you were lost and couldn't find me. I would climb into your bed and say I was right there, that you would never lose me." Emily began to cry without understanding why. There was something so familiar in those words, like distant echoes of a song she knew but couldn't sing. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, wiping her tears. "Because even if you don't remember, I will never forget," said Ethan with the wisdom of someone much older. "And because I love you, Mom, even if you never love me back." Emily looked at that 9-year-old boy and felt her heart tighten. There was a sincerity in his eyes that was impossible to ignore. I feel like I should remember," she admitted. "But it's like trying to remember a dream. The harder I try, the more it slips away." "Then don't try," said Ethan, carefully holding her hand. "Aunt Margaret said love always finds a way." Emily didn't pull her hand away. For the first time since she woke up, she wasn't afraid of the boy. On the contrary, she felt something like comfort. Rebecca arrived at the room at that moment and saw the scene. Her expression of anger was quickly masked by a fake smile. "Hello, dear. I see you have visitors." "Hi, Aunt Rebecca," replied Emily, but she didn't let go of Ethan's hand. Rebecca noticed the gesture and felt she was losing influence over her niece. She needed to act more quickly. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something important. It's about your grandfather Anthony's inheritance," she said, giving a meaningful look to Ethan. "Perhaps it's better if we talk in private." Ethan understood the message and stood up to leave. "May I come back tomorrow?" he asked Emily. "You may," she replied, surprising herself. When Ethan left, Rebecca closed the door and sat by the bed. "Dear, I need to tell you the truth about some things. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. now continuing. "What truth?" asked Emily, suspicious. "Your grandfather Anthony left a considerable inheritance when he passed away 5 years ago. That inheritance should have been divided between you and me, as his only living granddaughters." "And it wasn't? That husband of yours convinced you to put everything in his and the boy's name. He said it was to protect the family's future," Rebecca lied shamelessly. Emily felt confused. She had no memory of her grandfather dying or of any inheritance. "Are you sure about that?" "I have all the documents," said Rebecca, taking papers out of her bag. "Look here. Your signature transferring all the assets to their names." Emily looked over the documents, but the words seemed all jumbled up. Her head still wasn't completely clear enough to deal with such complex matters. "I don't understand any of this," she admitted. "That's exactly what they wanted," said Rebecca, feigning indignation. "They kept you in the dark about your own rights, and now that you've lost your memory, they'll probably try to take even more advantage of you." "But the boy, he seems genuine when he talks to me," said Emily hesitantly. "Children can be coached to say anything," Rebecca countered. "Think about it, dear. Do you really believe you would have chosen to have a child so young? You were always so independent, so focused on your dreams." Emily felt her confusion grow. Indeed, the idea of having gotten pregnant at 23 seemed strange to her. "What if you're wrong? What if they really do love me?" "Then why don't you feel anything for them?" Rebecca asked cruelly. "If it were true love, you'd feel something, wouldn't you?" Rebecca's words planted a seed of doubt in Emily's heart. Maybe she really had been manipulated into living a life she never wanted. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Michael was talking with Grandma Ruth about the worsening state of Emily's emotional health. "She's more distant with each passing day," he said, worried. "It's Rebecca's fault," Grandma Ruth replied angrily. "She's filling Emily's head with lies." "But why? What does she gain from it?" "Money," said a voice behind them. They turned and saw Margaret, who had overheard the conversation. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," said the nurse, "but I heard you talking about Rebecca and remembered something." "What is it?" asked Michael. "She was making calls on the hallway phone yesterday. I heard her talking about inheritance documents and about getting temporary mental incapacity guardianship of Emily." Grandma Ruth turned pale. "That means she's trying to take advantage of Emily's condition to steal Anthony's inheritance." "What inheritance?" asked Michael, confused. "Emily's and Rebecca's grandfather left a property in Lake Tahoe. It's not a fortune, but it's worth a good amount of money. When he died, he left everything to both granddaughters equally." "And why didn't Rebecca take her share?" "Because Emily, even though she was young, was smart enough to see that Rebecca was only interested in the money. She insisted the inheritance be put into a trust that could only be used for real needs, like Ethan's health or education." Michael understood the situation. Rebecca was trying to use Emily's vulnerability to get access to the money she'd never been able to get before. "We need to prove this," he said. "How?" asked Grandma Ruth. "I have an idea," said Margaret, "but you need to trust me." That night, Margaret was on duty on Emily's floor. She knew Rebecca usually made late visits when there was less activity in the hospital. Around 10 o'clock, Rebecca appeared with a folder of documents. "How is my niece?" she asked the nurse. "Sleeping," replied Margaret. "But you can go in quietly." Rebecca entered the room and gently woke Emily. "Sorry to wake you, dear, but we need to sort out some legal matters while you're still in the hospital." "What matters?" asked Emily sleepily. "Signing some papers to fix the inheritance situation we talked about. Nothing complicated," said Rebecca, taking documents out of the folder. What she didn't know was that Margaret had left the room's intercom on, transmitting the entire conversation to the nurses' station, where Michael and Grandma Ruth were waiting. "I don't know if I should be signing anything right now," said Emily hesitantly. "My head still isn't very clear." "That's exactly why we need to do this now," Rebecca insisted. "If you wait too long, the doctors might say you're not capable of making legal decisions. Then it will be too late to get back what's yours." "But what if what they're saying is true? What if I really did love these people?" "Emily, do you trust me?" asked Rebecca, changing tactics. "Yes," replied Emily uncertainly. "Then sign these papers. It's for your own good." You'll regain your independence, and you'll be able to freely choose how you want to live your life." Emily picked up the pen, but something made her hesitate. There was a little voice in her head saying that this wasn't right. Just then, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He couldn't sleep in the room Grandma Ruth had rented near the hospital and decided to come back to try and see his mother. "What's going on?" asked the boy. "Nothing that concerns you," Rebecca replied curtly. "Go back to where you were." But Emily looked at Ethan and something clicked in her mind. The genuine worry in the boy's eyes contrasted sharply with Rebecca's suspicious haste. "What are these papers?" asked Emily, more alert now. They're just," began Rebecca, but she was interrupted by the arrival of Michael, Grandma Ruth, and Margaret. "They're documents to transfer your inheritance into her name," said Michael, entering the room. "That's a lie!" exclaimed Rebecca. "No, it's not," said Grandma Ruth, picking up the papers. "Look here, Emily. She's trying to get you to sign over all the property your grandfather left you." Emily read the documents more carefully and saw that Grandma Ruth was right. "You lied to me," she said to Rebecca, feeling betrayed. "I was protecting you." Rebecca defended herself. "Protecting me from what? From people who love me?" asked Emily, looking at Ethan. "They're manipulating you," insisted Rebecca, desperate. "You're the one who's manipulating," said a firm voice at the door. Everyone turned and saw Dr. Thompson standing there with some papers in his hand. "Rebecca Santos, you are attempting to take advantage of a patient in a state of mental vulnerability. This is a form of abuse that can result in legal action." Rebecca paled. "Furthermore," the doctor continued, "I did some research into the family history. You never had a right to the full inheritance. Your grandfather left everything specifically to Emily, with you receiving only a symbolic amount for the care he expected you to provide for her." "That's not true!" shouted Rebecca. "I have a copy of the will right here," said Dr. Thompson, "and I also have recordings of your phone conversations about gaining guardianship of Emily. The hospital administration has already contacted the proper authorities." Rebecca realized she had been found out. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the room, promising that this wasn't over. Emily was in shock from the whole situation. She had trusted Rebecca and had almost made a terrible mistake. "I'm so sorry," she said, looking at Michael and Ethan. "It's not your fault," Michael said kindly. "She took advantage of your condition." Ethan approached the bed timidly. "Are you okay, Mom?" For the first time, Emily wasn't startled by the word Mom. Even though she still didn't remember him, she was beginning to believe that maybe there was something real between them. "I think so," she replied. "Ethan, I'm sorry for being so cold with you. I was confused and scared." "I understand," said the boy with a maturity beyond his years. "It must be very strange to have people saying they love you when you don't remember them." Ethan's simple words touched Emily deeply. There was a wisdom and a kindness in that boy that was impossible to ignore. You really believe I'm your mother?" she asked. "I don't believe it," said Ethan, smiling. "I know. Even if you don't remember, you're still my mom, and I will always love you even if you never remember me." Emily felt the tears return to her eyes. This time they weren't tears of fear or confusion, but of something she couldn't yet name. In the following days, the atmosphere in the hospital changed completely. Without Rebecca's interference, Emily began to feel more relaxed to explore her emotions and feelings about the family she couldn't remember. Ethan started visiting her daily again, but in a different way. Instead of trying to force her to remember, he simply talked with her, telling her about his day at school, his friends, his mischief. "Today at school, Mrs. Johnson asked about you," Ethan told her one afternoon. "She said she misses you at the parent-teacher meetings." "I used to go to the meetings," asked Emily, curious. "You did, and you always asked questions to all the teachers. Sometimes even I got embarrassed," said Ethan, laughing. "But then you'd explain to me that it was because you cared about my studies." Emily smiled. There was something comforting about the idea of having been an involved mother. "And what else did I do?" she asked. "You made the best chocolate cake in the world," said Ethan, his eyes shining. "Every year on my birthday you'd wake up early to bake the cake and decorate the house with balloons." "What was the cake like?" "It had 3 layers and you'd write my name with colored frosting. And you always put 9 little candles on it, Even when I said I was too old for candles, Ethan recounted, smiling at the memory. Emily found herself imagining the scene. She could almost visualize a kitchen, the smell of chocolate from the oven, small hands helping to mix the batter. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "can you teach me how to make that cake?" The boy's eyes lit up. "Of course. When you get out of the hospital, we can make it together. Even if I don't remember the recipe. We'll figure it out together," said Ethan, holding her hand. "It might even be more fun that way." Michael, who was watching the conversation from the doorway, felt a pang of hope for the first time in weeks. Although Emily still didn't remember him, she was beginning to open up to the idea of having a family. "Excuse me," he said, entering the room. "Can I talk with you, Emily?" Emily hesitated for a moment, but nodded. Ethan said goodbye with a kiss on her forehead, a gesture she no longer rejected. "How are you feeling?" asked Michael, sitting in the chair Ethan had left vacant. "Better," she admitted. "Less scared, I think." "That's good," he said, trying not to show how much it still hurt not to be recognized by her. "Michael," Emily said suddenly, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Anything. How did we meet? I mean, what was it like before? Before all this?" Michael smiled, remembering those times that seemed so distant now. "We met in college. You were studying education and I was studying business. You always sat at the same table in the library, always with stacks of books about early childhood education. And you?" she asked, genuinely interested. "I was always trying to understand financial mathematics at the next table over. One day you noticed I was struggling and offered to help me. I knew financial mathematics. You were good at everything you set your mind to learn," Michael said with pride. "It took you 3 hours to explain concepts I hadn't been able to understand for weeks." Emily smiled slightly. "And then I invited you for coffee as a thank you. You said you'd only accept if we could talk about something other than mathematics," Michael recounted. "We spent 4 hours in that cafe talking about your plans to open a school for underprivileged children. I wanted to open a school. It was your dream. You said every child deserved a quality education, regardless of their social background." She would get so excited when talking about this that her eyes would sparkle. Emily felt strangely moved by that story. Even though she didn't remember it, she felt it made sense. There was something about the children that touched her deeply. "And we've been dating ever since?" "Not immediately," said Michael, laughing. "You said you were too focused on your studies for a relationship. It took me 6 months of trying to get an official first date." "You're persistent," she commented. "When it comes to people I love, yes," he said, and immediately regretted using the word love in the present tense. Emily noticed, but didn't feel uncomfortable like before. "Michael," she said after a moment, "I know this must be very difficult for you, having a wife who doesn't remember you." "It is," he admitted, "but I'm learning to deal with it. Dr. Thompson explained to me that forcing things can be harmful, so I'm trying to be patient." "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, even when I was being horrible to you and to Ethan." "You were never horrible," said Michael. "You were scared and confused. It's perfectly understandable." Emily looked at him for a long moment. There was something familiar in his eyes, a kindness that seemed known. "Can I ask you more questions about our life?" she asked. "As many as you want," replied Michael, feeling a spark of hope. "What was it like when Ethan was born?" Michael's face lit up at the memory. "It was the happiest day of my life," he said. "You were nervous the whole pregnancy, afraid you wouldn't be a good mother. And was I? A good mother?" "The best," said Michael with conviction. "You read him stories every night, sang him to sleep, took him to the park every weekend. He was your absolute priority." Emily felt something stir inside her. There was a strange feeling, as if something was trying to emerge from the depths of her mind. "You said I sang to him?" "Always." "His favorite song was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, but you made up happier lyrics so it wouldn't scare him." Suddenly, a melody started playing in Emily's mind. She didn't know where it came from, but she could hear a voice singing a sweet, modified version of the traditional song. "What were the lyrics?" she asked hesitantly. Michael began to sing softly. "Twinkle, twinkle, happy star. Don't you frighten this little boy, for he has gone to sleep in his mama's arms." As he sang, Emily felt a wave of inexplicable emotion. Tears began to roll down her face without her understanding why. "Why am I crying?" she asked, confused. "Maybe because some part of you is remembering," said Michael gently. That night Emily had trouble sleeping. Fragments of images began to appear in her dreams. Small hands, children's laughter, the smell of baby powder. She woke up in the early morning with a strange feeling in her chest. She had dreamed of a little boy running in a park, shouting, "Mommy, look!" before throwing himself into her arms. In the dream, she could feel the weight of the child, the warmth of the hug, the overwhelming feeling of unconditional love. But when she woke up, everything seemed distant again. Margaret entered the room during her nightly rounds and found Emily awake, looking out the window. "Can't sleep, dear?" "I had strange dreams," said Emily. "Or maybe they were memories. I can't tell the difference." "How so?" "I dreamed of a little boy. I knew he was my son in the dream, and the love I felt for him was so intense it still hurts in my chest." Margaret smiled. "That wasn't a dream, dear. That was your memory trying to come back. But how can that be? The doctor said I might never remember." "Doctors know a lot, but they don't know everything," said Margaret, sitting in the chair next to the bed. "The heart has memories that the brain sometimes can't access, but they're there. Do you really believe I'll remember?" "I believe you're already remembering," said Margaret. "Maybe not the specific situations, but the feelings, and the feelings are more important than the memories." The next day, Ethan arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. He had convinced Grandma Ruth to let him skip school to spend more time with his mother. "Good morning," he said, entering the room with a smile. "Good morning," replied Emily, and for the first time since she woke up, she smiled back genuinely. "How did you sleep?" "I dreamed about you," she said, surprising them both. "You were smaller in the dream, and you were running in a park." Ethan got excited. "You remembered Central Park. It was your favorite place to take me." "It was?" asked Emily, trying to connect the dream to reality. "Yes, you always brought sandwiches, and we'd have a picnic under the big tree near the lake." Emily closed her eyes, trying to picture the scene. For a moment she could almost smell the grass, hear the sound of children playing in the distance. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "can you tell me more about those things we used to do together?" "Of course," said the boy excitedly. He began to tell detailed stories about their outings, about how she helped him with his homework, about the times he got sick, and she cared for him with endless patience. "Once I broke my arm falling from the tree in the backyard," Ethan recounted. "You were more upset than I was. You cried more than I did at the hospital and didn't leave my side for a minute." "I cried?" asked Emily. "A lot. And you kept apologizing, saying it was your fault for letting me climb the tree." Emily felt a familiar pang of maternal guilt, though she didn't understand where it came from. "But it wasn't your fault, was it?" she said. "Of course not," laughed Ethan. "I was the stubborn one. You always warned me to be careful." For some reason, the idea of Ethan getting hurt made Emily extremely uncomfortable. There was a protective instinct she couldn't explain. Do you get hurt often?" she asked, worried. "No, I'm very careful." "You taught me to be," replied Ethan, noticing the genuine concern in her voice. "That's good," said Emily, and then she stopped, surprised by her own reaction. "Why do I care so much if you get hurt or not?" "Because you're my mother," said Ethan simply. "Even if you don't remember, you still love me." Emily looked at the boy and felt a wave of emotion she couldn't name. It wasn't exactly a memory, but it was something deep and instinctive. "Ethan," she said hesitantly, Can I give you a hug?" Ethan's eyes filled with tears of happiness. "You can," he said, moving closer to the bed. When Emily hugged him, something inexplicable happened. The world around them seemed to disappear for a moment, and she felt as if she were coming home after a long journey. The hug felt familiar in a way that transcended conscious memory. "This feels right," she murmured, holding the boy tight. "For me too," said Ethan, crying with relief. Michael arrived at the room at that moment and found mother and son embracing, his own eyes filled with tears seeing the scene he had dreamed of for weeks. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "You're not interrupting," said Emily, not letting go of Ethan. "Actually, can you tell me more about our family? What would you like to know?" "Everything," she said. "I want to know about our traditions, our plans, our dreams. Even if I don't remember, I want to know about the life we built." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Michael sat by the bedside and began to tell her about their life. He talked about the trips they took every summer to the beach house they rented in Malibu, about how Emily insisted on teaching Ethan to swim even though she was afraid of deep water. "You're afraid of water?" asked Emily, surprised. "Yes, I am," said Ethan. "But you said you weren't going to let me have the same fear, so you faced yours to teach me." Emily felt strangely proud of this version of herself that she didn't remember. "And what else?" "You went back to school 2 years ago," Michael told her. "You decided to study education to finally open that school you always dreamed of." "I went back to school?" "Yes. You would stay up late doing homework after Ethan fell asleep. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find you at the kitchen table, surrounded by books. And you didn't mind?" "I minded because you would get too tired," said Michael. "But at the same time, I was proud to see you fighting for your dreams." "What dreams?" Ethan perked up. "You wanted to open a school for kids like Jacob, my friend from school. He doesn't have money for good schools, so you said you were going to make a free, quality school." "And how would that be possible?" "You had a whole plan worked out," said Michael. "You wanted to get partnerships with local companies, use your grandfather's inheritance as startup money, and recruit other teachers who thought like you." Emily felt connected again to this version of herself. The idea of helping underprivileged children resonated deeply with something inside her. "And you all supported this plan?" "Of course," said Ethan. "I even said that when I grow up I want to be a teacher too, to help you at the school." "You said that?" "Yes, I did. And you cried with happiness and said I would be the best teacher in the world." Emily smiled, imagining the scene. There was something so natural about the idea of having cried with pride for her son. "Michael," she said suddenly, "can I see pictures of our life together?" "I have some on my phone," he said hesitantly, "but I don't want you to force yourself." "I won't force myself," she assured him. "I just want to see." Michael showed some recent photos, Ethan blowing out candles on his last birthday, the three of them together on a picnic, Emily graduating from college with her diploma in hand. "This one is from when you graduated with your education degree last year," Michael explained. In the photo, Emily was radiant, hugging Ethan and Michael. There was a genuine happiness in her eyes that was impossible to fake. "I looked happy," she observed. "You were," confirmed Ethan. "You said it was the second happiest day of your life." "What was the first?" "The day I was born," said Ethan, blushing. Emily looked at the photo again and tried to connect with that smiling woman. For a moment, she managed to feel an echo of that happiness. "Can I see more?" Michael showed other photos, family vacations, birthday parties, simple everyday moments but full of love. "This one is special," he said, showing a photo of Emily asleep on the couch with a young Ethan on her lap. "You had been up all night because he had a fever. When the fever finally broke, you both collapsed from exhaustion." "It seems like I was very dedicated to him," commented Emily. "Too much sometimes," said Michael affectionately. "I always said you needed to take care of yourself too." "And did I listen?" "Rarely," laughed Michael. "You said that being a mother was the most important thing in the world to you." Emily felt an intense emotion hearing those words. Even though she didn't remember saying it, she felt it was still true. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "can you do something for me?" "Of course, anything." "Will you teach me how to be your mother again?" Ethan began to cry, but they were tears of joy. "You never stopped being my mother," he said. "You just forgot for a while. But I can help you remember." How? We can do new things together. And who knows, by doing new things, you might remember the old ones too. The boy's simple wisdom touched Emily deeply. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps it was better to focus on the present and the future and let the past come back naturally. "Okay," she said. "Let's start over. But this time, I want to learn everything about you. Your likes, your fears, your dreams. And I want to learn about you too," said Ethan. "Maybe you've changed a little, and that's okay. We can get to know each other again." Michael watched the conversation between mother and son with a heart full of hope. Although Emily still didn't remember him in the same way, she was clearly reconnecting with Ethan. It was a beginning. In the following days, Emily and Ethan spent hours talking. She asked about everything: his favorite food, his favorite subject in school, his friends, his fears. "What makes you the saddest?" she asked one afternoon. Ethan hesitated before answering. "When you were in the coma, I was very afraid that you would leave forever, and now sometimes I'm still afraid that you don't love me like you used to." Ethan's honesty broke Emily's heart. "Ethan, look at me," she said, holding his face in her hands. "I may not remember loving you before, but I know I love you now. It's different, but it's real." "How do you know?" "Because when I think of you getting hurt, my heart aches. When you smile, I feel happy. When you're sad, I want to fix everything for you. If that's not love, I don't know what is." Ethan smiled through his tears. "That really is love," he said. "And you know what? Maybe this new love is even better than the old one." "Why?" "Because you chose to love me even without remembering. That shows our love is stronger than anything." Ethan's words were like a revelation to Emily. He was right. The love she felt for him now was a conscious choice, not just a lost memory. "You are very wise for your 9 years," she said, kissing his forehead. "You're the one who taught me to be," replied Ethan. "Even without remembering, you're still teaching me." That night, Emily asked Margaret to help her call Michael. "Hello?" he answered, worried about the late-night call. "Hi, Michael. It's me." "Is everything all right? Did something happen?" "No, everything's fine. Actually, it's better than fine," she said. "I wanted to ask if you'd like to have dinner with me tomorrow." Michael was silent for a moment, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I want to get to know you better, as a person, not as someone I'm supposed to remember. Can we start from scratch?" "Are you sure?" "I am. Ethan made me realize I don't need to recover the past to build a future. We can create new beginnings." Michael felt his eyes fill with tears of relief. "I would love to have dinner with you," he said. "Great, and Michael?" "Yes?" "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I didn't know who you were." "I would never give up," he said. "I love you too much for that." "I know," said Emily, "and I want to learn to love you again." The next day, Michael brought a simple dinner for them to eat in the hospital garden. Nothing elaborate, just sandwiches and juice. But for both of them it was like a first date. "Tell me about yourself," said Emily. "Not about us, about you. Your dreams, your fears, what makes you happy?" "Well," began Michael, as nervous as a teenager. "I work in accounting, but my dream has always been to start my own business." "Why don't you?" "Fear, mostly, and also because I wanted stability for you and Ethan." "But if you're afraid, how will you manage?" "You always used to say that," said Michael, smiling. "You used to say that fear wasn't an excuse not to try." "It seems I was brave." "Yes, and you still are. Look at you, here trying to rebuild an entire life practically from scratch." Emily smiled. "I don't feel like it's from scratch. I feel like it's a different continuation." They talked for hours, and for the first time since the accident, Emily felt truly at ease with Michael. Not as a wife who should remember him, but as a woman getting to know an interesting man. "Can I ask a personal question?" she said. "Of course." "Why do you love me? Not the Emily you knew, but me. Now." Michael thought carefully before answering. "Because even without your memories, you're still the bravest person I know. I saw how you faced the fear and confusion. I saw how you chose to give Ethan a chance even without remembering him. I saw your strength when you discovered Rebecca's lies. And now I see you choosing to rebuild instead of running away. How could I not love someone like that? Emily felt deeply touched. And me? Why should I love you? You shouldn't, said Michael simply. Love isn't a duty. You should love me only if you choose to. And if I choose not to love you, then that will be your choice, and I will respect it. But I will keep on being the best father I can be for Ethan. Michael's maturity and generosity impressed Emily. There was no pressure, manipulation, or emotional blackmail, just patient and respectful love. Michael, she said suddenly, can I kiss you? He was surprised. Are you sure? I want to see what I feel, she said. Just a kiss to see if there's any connection beyond words. They kissed softly, a hesitant and exploratory kiss. Emily closed her eyes and focused on the sensations. When they parted, she was silent for a long moment. Well? Asked Michael, anxious. I didn't feel memories, she said honestly. But I felt something, a kind of familiarity, as if my body remembers even if my mind doesn't. That's something, said Michael, hopeful. Yes, it is. It's a start. That night, Emily dreamed more vividly than any night since waking from the coma. She dreamed of fragments, hands holding hers, laughter in a sunny kitchen, the feeling of a head resting on her shoulder. When she woke up, she couldn't distinguish between dreams and memories, but the feeling of connection remained. Margaret, she called when the nurse appeared for the morning rounds. Yes, dear? I think I want to go home. Are you sure? The doctors may want to observe you for a few more days. I'm sure, said Emily with conviction. I won't get my old life back by staying here. I need to go home and start living a new life. Dr. Thompson agreed to discharge her, as long as she continued regular psychological and neurological follow-ups. Remember, he said, memory recovery may happen gradually, or it may never happen completely. The important thing is that you are psychologically stable and ready to rebuild your life. I understand, said Emily, and I'm ready. On the day of the discharge, Ethan was more nervous than she was. What if you don't like our house? He asked. Ethan, any place can be a home if the right people are there, said Emily. And you are the right people. The house was a simple two-story home in a middle-class residential neighborhood in Chicago. When Emily entered, she had a strange feeling of déjà vu, although she couldn't identify any specific object. This is your room, said Michael, opening the door to the master bedroom. Emily went in and looked around. There were photos on the dresser, books on the shelf, clothes in the closet. It was clearly a woman's room, but it felt like walking into a stranger's room. Can I sleep in the guest room for now? She asked. Just until I feel more comfortable. Of course, said Michael, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. Anything you need. Ethan showed her his room full of books, toys, and drawings taped to the wall. You helped me make some of these drawings, he said, pointing to some artwork clearly made by 4 hands. They're beautiful, said Emily, studying the drawings. There was something familiar about the style, but she couldn't identify what it was. Want to see the kitchen? Asked Ethan. It's where you make the best cakes in the world. The kitchen was cozy and well organized. Emily opened a few cabinets and was surprised to instinctively know where everything was. How do I know where things are? She asked, confused. Muscle memory, explained Michael. Your body remembers, even if your mind doesn't. Emily picked up a bowl and without thinking went straight to the right cabinet to get the other baking utensils. Amazing, she murmured. Want to try making a cake? Suggested Ethan hopefully. Actually, yes. I really want to try. They spent the afternoon making a chocolate cake. Emily discovered that her hands knew the movements, even when her mind didn't know the exact measurements. Ethan helped, correcting her when she got confused. No, Mom. You always put in 3 eggs, not 2, he said at one point. I always do? She asked, smiling. Always, and you always let me crack the last one. Emily handed the egg to Ethan, and when he cracked it into the bowl, she had a sudden flash. The same smaller hands cracking an egg, the same concentration on his little face, the same proud expression when he succeeded without spilling. "Ethan," she said, gasping, "what is it? I think I remembered you cracking an egg before. You were smaller." Ethan got emotional. "You really remembered?" "Just a flash, but it was real. I'm sure it was real." They finished the cake in a celebratory mood. When it came out of the oven, smelling exactly as Ethan had described, Emily felt a wave of satisfaction that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her soul. "It's perfect," said Michael, tasting a piece. "It's just like your usual cake," confirmed Ethan. "Even though I don't remember the recipe?" asked Emily, impressed with herself. "The heart remembers," said Ethan, with his child's wisdom. That night, Emily was arranging her things in the guest room when she found a notebook in one of the drawers. It was a diary she had apparently kept. With a racing heart, she opened it and began to read. March 15th. Ethan got a 10 on his math test today. I'm so proud. He worked so hard for it. I promised we'd celebrate by making his favorite cake. April 22nd. Michael is worried about the costs of my college, but I know it's worth it. Every day brings me closer to my dream of opening the school. Ethan said he'll be my first volunteer student. May 8th. Today Ethan asked if I would love him forever. I said yes, that a mother's love is eternal. He smiled and said that then he'll love me eternally too. My heart almost exploded with love. Tears began to fall on the paper as Emily read. Although she didn't remember writing those words, she could feel the love in every line. She continued reading. June 20th. Terrible nightmare today. I dreamed that I lost Ethan and could never find him again. I woke up crying and went to check if he was okay. He was sleeping like a little angel. Sometimes I'm so afraid something will happen to him. July 15th. Michael surprised me with a romantic dinner after Ethan fell asleep. We talked about our plans for the future, the school, maybe having another child, growing old together. I feel like the luckiest woman in the world. Emily closed the diary, moved. That woman who had written those words loved her family deeply. And though she didn't remember being her, she could feel that she was capable of loving like that again. There was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," she said. It was Ethan, in his pajamas, holding a teddy bear. "I couldn't sleep," he said timidly. "Why?" "I'm afraid I'll wake up tomorrow and you'll have forgotten me again." Emily's heart broke. She opened her arms. "Come here." Ethan ran into her arms and she hugged him tight. "Ethan, listen to me carefully. I may not remember everything we've been through together, but I will never forget what I feel for you right now, I promise." "You swear?" "I swear. And you know what else? I found my diary and read about how much I loved you before. And guess what? I love you exactly the same way now." Ethan pulled back to look at her. "Really? Really? Do you want to sleep here with me tonight?" Ethan nodded enthusiastically. They lay down together in the small bed. Ethan nestled in Emily's arms. "Mom," he whispered. "Yes. Can you sing that song?" "Which song?" "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the way you always sang it." Emily began to sing softly, making up a sweet version like Michael had taught her. As she sang, the words came more naturally, as if from somewhere beyond her conscious memory. "Twinkle, twinkle, happy star, don't you take this boy from me, for he has gone to sleep in his mother's arms." Ethan fell asleep in her arms, and Emily kept singing until she herself fell asleep. For the first time since the accident, she slept deeply and without nightmares. The next morning she woke with Ethan still in her arms. The feeling was so natural that for a moment she completely forgot about the amnesia. "Good morning, my love," she murmured, kissing the top of his head. "Good morning, Mom," replied Ethan, still sleepy. They went down to breakfast together. Michael was in the kitchen making pancakes. "Good morning," he said, smiling at the sight of the two of them together. "Good morning," replied Emily. "The pancakes smell good." "It was your favorite weekend breakfast," he said. "It was?" Emily tried a piece and immediately felt the taste was familiar. "Wow, this is really good." "You always said I made the best pancakes in Chicago," Michael laughed. "I may have lost my memory, but I haven't lost my taste buds," said Emily, eating with appetite. This is delicious. During breakfast, they talked about plans for the day. It was Saturday, and Ethan wanted to show Emily some of his favorite places in the neighborhood. "Can we go to the park where you taught me to ride a bike?" he suggested. "Of course," said Emily, "but you'll have to show me where it is." "I know it by heart," said Ethan, excited. They walked to the park, a small but well-kept green space. There was a large tree near a small pond, exactly as Ethan had described. "That's where we used to have picnics," Ethan pointed out. Emily looked at the spot and had another feeling of déjà vu. She could almost see a checkered blanket spread on the grass, feel the warmth of the sun, hear distant laughter. "Do you want to sit there for a moment?" she suggested. They sat under the tree. Ethan began telling more stories about the times they had spent there, and as he spoke, more images began to form in Emily's mind. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "I think I'm starting to remember." "Really?" He got excited. "They're just flashes, and I'm not sure if they're real memories or if my mind is creating pictures based on what you're telling me. But there's something familiar." "It doesn't matter," said Ethan. "Real or not, if it makes you happy, then it's good." The boy's wisdom once again surprised Emily. He was right. It didn't matter if they were recovered memories or new ones being created. What mattered was the feeling of connection and love. When they returned home, they found Grandma Ruth in the kitchen preparing lunch. "Grandma!" shouted Ethan, running to hug her. "My beautiful grandson," said Grandma Ruth, kissing the top of his head. Then she looked at Emily with a cautious smile. "Hi, dear." "Hi, Grandma Ruth," replied Emily. "Thank you for everything you did for us while I was in the hospital." "No need to thank me. We're family," said the elderly woman, moved to see Emily treating her with affection again. "Grandma makes the best lasagna in the world," said Ethan. "It's true," confirmed Michael. "You always said you wanted to learn her recipe." "Can I learn now?" asked Emily to Grandma Ruth. "Of course, my dear. It would be a pleasure to teach you." They spent the afternoon cooking together. Grandma Ruth patiently taught each step, and Emily discovered that her hands remembered some basic cooking movements. "You were always a good cook," commented Grandma Ruth. "You said you learned by watching your mother when you were little." "I don't remember my mother," said Emily sadly. "She was a wonderful woman," said Grandma Ruth kindly. "She died when you were still a teenager, but she taught you well. You have the same caring way about you as she did." "What was she like?" "Brave, like you, determined, and she loved you more than anything in the world, just like you love Ethan." Emily felt connected to this lineage of brave mothers, even without remembering them. "Grandma Ruth," she said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you believe I will fully recover my memory?" Grandma Ruth stopped stirring the sauce and looked at Emily with affection. "You know, my dear, I saw you in the hospital fighting to remember, and now I see you here creating new memories, and I realize that maybe it doesn't matter so much if you remember the past." "What do you mean?" "What matters is that you are building a future, with Ethan, with Michael, with me. These new memories we are creating now are as valuable as the old ones." "You're right," said Emily thoughtfully. "Maybe I'm trying to recover a life that has already passed, instead of living the life I have now." "Exactly. And you know what? The Emily I see now is even stronger than the one before, because you chose to love even without remembering. That is a very special kind of love." When the lasagna was ready, they had dinner together as a family. Emily observed the dynamic between everyone and felt deeply grateful to be a part of it. "This lasagna is really amazing," she said to Grandma Ruth. "Thank you, dear, and you helped very well. Next time you can make it by yourself." "I can make it by myself already." "Absolutely. You were always quick to learn new things." After dinner, Ethan asked to watch a family movie. They settled on the living room sofa, Ethan between Emily and Michael. "What movie are we going to watch?" asked Emily. "Finding Nemo," said Ethan immediately. "It was our favorite movie to watch together." "Why that movie?" she asked. "Because it's about a father who never gives up looking for his son, even when it seems impossible," explained Ethan. "And because in the end, they find each other again." Emily felt a pang of emotion. Maybe Ethan had chosen that movie for a deeper reason. During the movie, Ethan gradually leaned closer to Emily until he ended up falling asleep with his head in her lap. Emily automatically began to stroke his hair, a gesture that came out naturally. "You always used to do that," whispered Michael. "When he was smaller, it was the only way to get him to sleep when he was restless." "It feels natural," murmured Emily, continuing to stroke her son's hair. "Because it is. Some things transcend memory. They're maternal instincts." When the movie ended, Michael carried Ethan to his room. Emily followed him and watched them put the boy to bed. "He looks so small when he's sleeping," she commented. "You always used to say that," said Michael, covering Ethan with the blanket. "You said that even as he grew up, to you, he would always be your baby." Emily kissed Ethan's forehead before leaving the room. "Good night, my love," she whispered. In the hallway, Michael stopped and looked at her. "Emily, can I say something?" "Of course." "Today was the best day since your accident. Seeing you with Ethan, with Grandma Ruth, seeing you allow yourself to be part of this family again, it was beautiful. It was special for me too," she admitted. "I'm starting to feel at home." "That's good," said Michael, smiling. "And there's no rush for anything. I want you to know that. We can go at your pace." "Thank you," said Emily, "for all your patience. I know it can't be easy." "It's worth it," he said simply. Emily impulsively stepped closer and gave him a light kiss on the cheek. "Good night, Michael." "Good night, Emily." That night, Emily wrote in a new notebook she had bought, "First day home. I don't remember having lived here before, but today it felt like my home. Ethan is teaching me how to be his mother again, and surprisingly, it feels natural. Michael is more patient and kinder than I could have hoped to deserve. And Grandma Ruth makes me feel part of a larger family. Maybe I don't need to remember the past to be happy in the present." In the following days, Emily established a new routine. She would take Ethan to school in the morning, and during that walk he would tell stories and point out important places. "That's the bakery where you always buy me sugar bread," he said one day. "Want to stop there?" asked Emily. They went into the bakery, and the owner, Mr. Joseph, immediately smiled. "Mrs. Emily, so good to see you back. How are you feeling?" "Well, thank you," she replied, surprised that he knew her. "Ethan told everyone in the neighborhood about the accident. We were very worried." "She lost some of her memory," explained Ethan, "but she's getting better." Of course," said Mr. Joseph understandingly. "The important thing is that you're well. And Ethan, do you want the usual sugar bread?" "Yes, please." While Mr. Joseph prepared the order, he chatted with Emily. "You've always been very well liked here in the neighborhood, always friendly, always concerned about the neighborhood children." "Was I?" asked Emily, interested. "Oh, yes. Many times I saw you helping children who were struggling in school, giving free tutoring to those who couldn't afford it." Emily felt proud of that version of herself. After dropping Ethan off at school, she began to explore the neighborhood alone. In every place she visited, she discovered clues about who she had been. At the local library, the librarian greeted her warmly. "Emily, I've missed you. How are your pedagogy studies going?" "Actually, I had an accident and lost some of my memory," explained Emily. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. But you were always so determined. I'm sure you'll overcome this." "Can you tell me what I used to study here?" "Of course. You used to come almost every day to research innovative teaching methodologies. You said you wanted to open a different kind of school, focused on low-income children." The librarian showed her a table at the back of the library. "This was your favorite table. You would sit here for hours taking notes, planning curriculum, studying ways to get funding for your project." Emily sat at the table and immediately felt comfortable there. It was as if her body remembered the place. "Can I see the books I used to use?" "Of course, you had a list of favorites. You would always renew the same titles." The librarian brought over a stack of books about early childhood education, developmental psychology, and educational administration. Emily started flipping through one of the books and found notes in the margins in her own handwriting, comments on how to apply certain theories, ideas for activities, reflections on education. "I really was passionate about this," she murmured, reading her own notes. "So much. You used to say that education was the only real way to change the world." Emily spent the morning reading and reconnecting with her professional dreams. Although she didn't remember writing those notes, she completely agreed with them. In the afternoon, she went to pick up Ethan from school. On the way back, they passed by a fenced, empty lot. "Mom, look," said Ethan, stopping in front of the lot. "You always used to look at this place and say it would be perfect for your school." Emily looked at the lot with renewed interest. It was a spacious area, well located, near several underserved communities. "It really would be a good place," she agreed. "You even had a drawing of what the school would look like," said Ethan. "Do you want to see it when we get home?" "Very much." At home, Ethan searched through a drawer and brought out a folder with drawings and notes. "Look," he said, showing a detailed sketch of a school. The drawing showed a low, welcoming building with bright classrooms, a library, a large playground, and even a vegetable garden. "New Hope School," Emily read the name written at the top of the drawing. "You said you were going to call it that because every child deserves a new hope," explained Ethan. Emily felt a wave of emotion looking at her own plans. There was so much care and love in those drawings, so much hope of making a difference in children's lives. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "do you think I can still do this, open this school?" "Of course you can," he said, excited. "You always say it's never too late to make dreams come true." "But I lost a lot of time in the hospital. I lost important memories." "But you didn't lose your heart," said Ethan with his usual wisdom. "And you always said that to be a teacher, the most important thing is to have heart." The boy's words touched Emily deeply. She picked up the drawings and studied them with renewed attention. When Michael came home from work, he found mother and son bent over the school plans. "What are you two doing?" he asked, curious. "Mum wants to continue the school project," announced Ethan excitedly. Michael looked at Emily, surprised. "Really?" "I think so," she said. "I spent the morning at the library, rereading my notes, remembering my plans, and you know what I discovered?" "What?" "That even without remembering having had this dream before, I still have it now. When I see children on the street without access to a quality education, my heart aches. When I imagine a school where every child feels valued, I get excited." "So you really want to move forward with this?" asked Michael. "I do, but I need your help, your knowledge of administration and finances." Michael smiled. "You can always count on me. We were a team, remember? You with the educational vision and me handling the financial side." "Were we a good team?" she asked. "The best," confirmed Ethan. "You two would stay up late making plans, calculating costs, dreaming about the future." Emily felt deeply connected to that version of herself and Michael working together for a common goal. "Then let's start over," she said. "The three of us together. A family fighting for a dream." That night they stayed up late, reviewing the old plans and making new ones. Ethan helped with creative suggestions for school activities, Michael calculated costs and feasibility, and Emily refined the educational vision. "You know," Michael said at one point, "I think the school will be even better now." "Why?" asked Emily. "Because you're bringing a new perspective. You kept your passion for education, but you're seeing everything with fresh eyes. Sometimes that's very valuable. And because now you know you can lose everything in the blink of an eye," added Ethan with seriousness. "So you'll value each moment even more." Ethan's mature observation impressed both Emily and Michael. "You're right," said Emily, hugging her son. "I will value every moment of this new life we are building." In the following weeks, Emily threw herself headfirst into rebuilding her life. She returned to her appointments with Dr. Thompson, who was impressed with her emotional progress. "You are exceptional," he said during an appointment. "The way you are handling the memory loss and rebuilding your identity is remarkable." "I have an amazing family supporting me," said Emily. "And what about the memories? Has anything come back?" "Some flashes here and there, isolated moments. But honestly, I'm no longer focused on recovering the past." "How so?" "I'm creating a new present and a new future. The old memories would be a bonus, but they aren't essential for my happiness." Dr. Thompson smiled. "That is a very healthy perspective. Many patients get stuck trying to recover what they lost, and they forget to live what they have. It was my son who taught me that. He said what's important, wasn't remembering the old love, but creating new love. Children are sometimes our best psychologists, agreed the doctor. That afternoon, Emily decided to visit the lot where she wanted to build the school. She was walking around imagining where each part of the building would be when an elderly lady approached. "Excuse me," said the lady. "You're Emily, aren't you?" "Yes, I am," she replied, surprised. "I'm Mrs. Carter. I live in the corner house. I heard you had an accident." "I did, but I'm recovering well." "That's good," said Mrs. Carter. "I wanted to tell you that I've always admired your school project. I have 2 grandchildren who would benefit greatly if you can get this off the ground." "You knew about the school?" "Of course. You talked to me about it several times. You even asked for my opinion on the location, about what kind of activities the neighborhood children would need most." Emily was touched to discover yet another person who had supported her dreams. "And what did I ask you?" "Mainly about special care. My youngest grandson has dyslexia, and you wanted to make sure the school would be prepared for children with different learning needs." "That sounds important," said Emily. "Very. You always said that a good school is one that adapts to the child, not one that forces the child to adapt." Emily felt proud again of this version of herself that was so careful and inclusive. "Mrs. Carter, would you like to help me with the project? Your experience with children would be very valuable." "I would love to," said the lady excitedly. "I've always wanted to contribute in some way." They spent an hour talking about the specific needs of the neighborhood children. Emily made mental notes, impressed by how much she still cared about these details. When she returned home, she found Ethan doing homework at the kitchen table. "How was school today?" she asked, sitting next to him. "It was good. Mrs. Johnson asked how you are." "And what did you say?" "That you're great." "Different but great," said Ethan, smiling. "Different how?" "I don't know how to explain it exactly. You seem lighter, less worried." Emily thought about what Ethan had said. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps the memory loss, despite being traumatic, had also freed her from some worries of the past. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." "Sometimes I feel guilty for not being more desperate to recover my memory." "Why?" "Because maybe I should want to remember you all, our life together, more." Ethan stopped writing and looked at her seriously. "Mom, do you want me to tell you a secret of mine?" "I do. Sometimes I like you more now than I did before." Emily was surprised. "What do you mean?" "Before you were the best mom in the world, but sometimes you were very worried. About money, about my studies, about the future. Now you seem more present, as if every moment were special." Ethan's words made her reflect. Perhaps the experience of almost losing everything had really changed her priorities. "You know I love you exactly the same, right?" she said. "I know. And maybe the same is even too little. I think you love me even more now." "Why?" "Because you chose to love me without being forced by memory. That's more special." Once again, Ethan's wisdom impressed her. He was right. The love she felt for him now was, in a way, more pure, because it was a conscious choice, renewed every day. That night, Emily talked to Michael about Ethan's observation. "Do you think I've changed a lot?" she asked. "You have, but for the better," said Michael honestly. "How so?" "You're more present, more focused on the now. Before, you were always worried about 1,000 things at once. Now you seem to have found a balance." "But don't you miss the old Emily?" Michael thought carefully before answering. "I miss the memories we shared, but the person you are now, I fell in love with her too, even though she's different. You're not that different. Your values are the same, your heart is the same, your way of loving Ethan is the same. You're just more light." That's the second time today someone has used that word. Because it's true. You seem to have freed yourself from some anxieties that were consuming you before. Emily snuggled on the couch, thoughtful. "Michael, can I ask you a personal question?" "Always." "What do you feel for me now, knowing that I may never fully remember our past together?" "I love you," he said without hesitation. "The woman you were, the woman you are, and the woman you are becoming. All of them. How can you be so sure? Because I've known you for 12 years, Emily. I know who you are deep in your heart, and that person hasn't changed. She just evolved. Michael's words deeply reassured her. For the first time since the accident, she felt completely accepted and loved for who she was, not for who she had been. I love you too, she said. It's a love different from what we had before, but it's real. Different how? More conscious, more chosen, less automatic and more intentional. Michael smiled. Maybe that's the strongest kind of love there is. That night, Emily wrote in her diary, I'm beginning to understand that perhaps my amnesia wasn't just a loss. It was also an opportunity to start over, to consciously choose who I want to be and how I want to love. Ethan is right. Chosen love is more special than remembered love. The next day, Emily decided to take an important step. She called the law firm that handled her grandfather Anthony's inheritance matters. Hello, this is Emily Mendonça. I'd like to inquire about the property my grandfather Anthony left. Ah, Mrs. Emily, we heard about your accident. How are you feeling? Much better, thank you. About the property? Yes, everything is in order. Your aunt's attempt to contest the will was rejected by the court. The property remains yours. I'd like to sell it to invest in an educational project. Of course, we can handle that. Would you like to schedule a meeting to discuss the details? Yes, please. When she told Michael and Ethan about her decision, they were both excited. Are you sure? Asked Michael. That property has sentimental value. Of which I have no memory, said Emily with a smile. I'd rather use that money for something that will make a real difference in people's lives. And it will be our school, said Ethan, jumping with joy. Our school, confirmed Emily, for the whole family. In the following weeks, they worked intensely on the preparations for the school project. Emily started going to the library again, this time not trying to recover memories, but creating new knowledge. She met with architects, talked with educators, visited other schools for inspiration. Each day, the project became more real and more hers. One afternoon, while she was at the library researching literacy methodologies, a woman approached her. Emily? The woman said hesitantly. Yes, replied Emily, looking up. I'm Mrs. Johnson, Ethan's teacher. May I sit down? Of course. Ethan talks about you a lot. How are you feeling? Very well, actually. Different, but well. Ethan told me about your school project. I think it's fantastic. Thank you. Actually, you could help me with something. I'm trying to develop a methodology that is both challenging and welcoming for children from different backgrounds. I'd be happy to help, said Mrs. Johnson. In fact, I've always admired your passion for education. You were always very involved in Ethan's school life, always with innovative ideas. I was, asked Emily, interested. Very much so. Once you suggested a project where the children taught each other, each one sharing something they knew well. It was a total success. That's an interesting idea, said Emily, taking notes. It could work at the new school, too. They spent 2 hours exchanging ideas about education. Emily discovered she had a natural connection with those concepts, even without remembering having studied them before. When she returned home, she found Grandma Ruth making cookies with Ethan. Grandma is teaching me how to make cookies to sell at the new school, announced Ethan, his hands dirty with dough. Sell cookies? Asked Emily, intrigued. It was his idea, explained Grandma Ruth. He said the school will need extra money, so he wants to contribute by selling cookies he learned to make. Emily was moved by her son's initiative. Ethan, you don't need to worry about money. That's the adult's responsibility. But I want to help, he said seriously. It's my school too, and Grandma makes the best cookies in the world. Let him help, suggested Grandma Ruth. It will teach him about responsibility and teamwork. All right, agreed Emily, but don't get too tired, deal? Deal, said Ethan, smiling. That night, Emily had a vivid dream. She dreamed she was in a classroom full of laughing children, teaching with passion and joy. In the dream, Ethan was sitting in the front row, smiling proudly at his mother. When she woke up, she didn't know if it had been a memory from the past or a vision of the future. But the feeling was so good it didn't matter. During breakfast, Ethan noticed she was particularly happy. Did you have a good dream? He asked her. I dreamed about our school, she said. It was full of happy children learning. That's exactly how it will be, said Ethan with conviction. You are the best teacher in the world. How can you be so sure? Because you teach me things every day without even realizing it, and everything you teach me makes me a better person. Emily kissed her son's forehead, once again impressed by his maturity. 2 weeks later, they received the news that the sale of the property had been approved. With the money from the sale, plus some savings from Michael and a small loan, they would have enough to start construction of the school. It's official, announced Emily when she arrived home with the signed papers. We are going to build the New Hope School, Ethan shouted with joy and ran to hug her. Michael arrived home at that moment and was greeted with the good news. I can't believe this is really happening, he said, hugging Emily and Ethan together. It is, said Ethan, and I'm going to be the first student. Actually, said Emily, you're going to be my special assistant. I want you to help me understand what the children really need. Really? Ethan's eyes shone. Really? You have a unique perspective on how to make learning fun. That evening, they celebrated with a special dinner. Grandma Ruth prepared her famous lasagna, and they toasted with grape juice. "To a toast," said Michael, raising his glass, "to the new phase of our lives, to New Hope School, to our family, and to the courage to start over." "To the courage to start over," repeated Emily emotionally. "And to the love that is stronger than anything," added Ethan. They toasted, and Emily felt deeply grateful to be there in that moment with those people she had chosen to love. In the following months, Emily threw herself body and soul into building the school. She followed every stage of the construction, participated in the choice of every material, and personally designed the layout of every classroom. Ethan accompanied her whenever possible, giving suggestions about desk height, wall colors, and the organization of the playground. Michael handled the administrative part, making sure everything was within budget and legal regulations. "Giono," Michael said one afternoon as they watched the workers, "I've never seen you so fulfilled." "Even without remembering what I was like before?" asked Emily. "Especially because of that. You're pursuing this dream because you really want to, not because you feel obligated by a decision you made in the past." "It's an incredible feeling," she admitted. "Every day building something new, something that will impact the lives of so many children. And it will. We already have a waiting list of more than 50 interested families." 50 families who trust us," said Emily, feeling the weight of the responsibility. "We can't disappoint them." "We won't," said Ethan, who had just arrived from school. "Our school is going to be the best of all." "Why are you so sure?" asked Emily, smiling. "Because it's made with love," he said simply. "And everything that is made with love turns out right." 6 months after the start of construction, New Hope School was ready. It was everything Emily had dreamed of. Bright and welcoming classrooms, a cozy library, a spacious playground with safe equipment, and even a small garden where the children could learn about nature. "It's perfect," said Grandma Ruth, visiting the school for the first time. "Thank you for all your help," said Emily, hugging her mother-in-law. "We couldn't have done it without you." "I will always be here for you," replied Grandma Ruth. "That's what family is for." On Inauguration Day, the school was full of parents, children, and curious neighbors. Emily was nervous, but also deeply happy. "Everyone," she said, addressing the small crowd, "I want to thank everyone who supported this project. This school is more than a building. It is a symbol of hope and possibility." "She means it's a place where every child can learn and be happy," translated Ethan, making everyone laugh. "Exactly," said Emily, kissing the top of his head. "Thank you, my official interpreter." After the ceremony, while the families explored the facilities, Emily stepped away a little to observe the scene. Children ran around the playground, parents chatted excitedly about their children's future, and teachers showed off the classrooms. Michael approached her. "How are you feeling?" "Complete," she said without hesitation. "For the first time since the accident, I feel complete." "Even without all your memories?" "I have the memories that matter. And the ones I don't have, I'm creating new ones every day." "And what about us?" asked Michael. "How do you feel about our family?" Emily looked at him affectionately. I feel like I've found my place in the world. With you, with Ethan, making a difference in people's lives. It doesn't matter if I built this before or if I'm building it now. What matters is that it's real." "I love you, Emily," said Michael. "I love you too," she replied, "and the best part is I know exactly why." They kissed gently, watched by Ethan, who smiled with satisfaction seeing his parents together and happy. "Mom, Dad!" he shouted, running towards them. "Come see. Mrs. Carter brought her grandchildren to see the school." Emily and Michael followed Ethan to where Mrs. Carter was with two young boys. "Emily," said Mrs. Carter, "these are my grandsons, Jacob and Peter. They are eager to study here." "Hello, boys," said Emily, kneeling down to be at their eye level. "Are you excited to start classes?" "Very much," said Jacob, the older one. "Ethan said you are the best teacher in the world." "Ethan exaggerates a little," laughed Emily. "But I will do my best to be a good teacher for you." "Will you teach us how to read stories?" asked Peter, the younger one. "I will teach you how to read, and you will be able to choose your own favorite stories." The boy's eyes shone with excitement. Watching that scene, Emily had another flash of memory. She saw herself kneeling in the same way, talking to Ethan when he was Peter's age, promising to teach him how to read his favorite stories. This time the memory didn't bring sadness for something lost, but joy for something regained. It was as if the past and the present had connected in a perfect moment. "Ethan," she called. "Do you remember when I promised I would teach you how to read stories?" Ethan came closer, intrigued. "Do you remember?" he asked hopefully. "I remember," she said, smiling. "You were sitting on my lap with a picture book, and you said you wanted to read by yourself. I promised I would teach you." Ethan began to cry with joy. "You remembered? You really remembered?" "I remembered," confirmed Emily, hugging her son. "And you know what? Even if I hadn't remembered, I would make the same promise today. Because some things are bigger than memory." "Like what?" asked Ethan. "Like a mother's love, like the commitment to care for you, like the promise to always be by your side." Michael watched the scene with his eyes full of happy tears. Grandma Ruth, who had approached upon hearing the commotion, was also moved. "My family," she murmured. "My beautiful, strong family." Later that evening, after all the guests had left and the school was quiet, Emily, Michael and Ethan walked one last time through the empty hallways. "It feels strange to be here without all the children," commented Ethan. "Tomorrow it will be full again," said Emily, "and every day after that." "Are you nervous for the first official day of school?" asked Michael. "A little," admitted Emily. "But it's a good kind of nervous, like when you're about to do something very important." "Everything will be fine," said Ethan with conviction. "I know it will." They arrived at the room that would be Emily's, and she stood in the doorway for a moment. "This is my room," she said, as if realizing a dream. "Our room," corrected Ethan. "You said I was going to be your special assistant." "That's true," smiled Emily. "My special assistant and my first and most important student." "Forever?" asked Ethan. "Forever," she promised. 3 months later, New Hope School was running at full steam. Emily had hired 3 more teachers, and they were teaching 60 children of different ages. "How is it going?" asked Dr. Thompson during one of her follow-up appointments. "Incredible," replied Emily. "Every day is challenging but extremely rewarding." "And the memories, has anything else come back?" "A few things here and there, moments with Ethan mostly, but I'm not worried about it anymore." "Why?" "Because I realize that the person I was before led me to where I am today, and the person I am today is creating the future I want. Both are important, but the present is where life really happens." "That's a very mature perspective," said Dr. Thompson. "And what about your family? How are things?" "Better than ever," said Emily without hesitation. "Michael and I got to know each other again and chose to love each other again. Ethan is thriving at school and becoming an even more amazing boy. And I found myself." "How so?" "I discovered who I am beyond my memories. I discovered that I am defined by my choices, my values, the love I give and receive. not by what I remember or fail to remember. Dr. Thompson smiled. Emily, in all my years of medicine, I have rarely seen someone transform such a devastating trauma into such profound growth. You are an example to us all. I didn't do it alone, she said. I had a family that never gave up on me, even when I didn't know them. I had people who showed me who I could be, not just who I had been. That night, Emily wrote in her diary, "Today marks 10 months since I woke up from the coma. If someone had told me back then that I would be here today, happy, fulfilled, complete, I wouldn't have believed it. I've learned that we are so much more than our memories. We are our choices, our values, our capacity to love and start over. And I've learned that sometimes losing everything is what we need to find out who we really are." A week later, Ethan came home from school with some special news. "Mom, Mrs. Johnson said something really cool today." "What did she say?" "She said you are the bravest mother she knows. That even after losing your memory, you chose to build a new life instead of being sad about what you lost." "And what did you say?" "I said I always knew you were the bravest, and that now everyone can see it too." Emily kissed her son, moved by his words. "Ethan, can I tell you a secret?" "Always." "You taught me more about love and courage than any memory could teach." "How so?" "You showed me that love isn't about remembering someone. It's about choosing someone every day. It's about caring, protecting, supporting. It's about being present." "And you do all that for me," said Ethan. "And you did all that for me when I didn't remember you. You're the one who taught me that love is stronger than memory." Ethan hugged his mother tightly. "I love you, Mom. The mum you were, the mum you are, and the mum you will be." Ethan's words echoed Michael's from months before, and Emily realized how surrounded she was by people who loved her unconditionally. "I love you too, my son. Forever." 2 years later, Emily was in her office at the school when she received an unexpected call. "Hello, this is Emily." "Emily? It's me, Rebecca." Emily tensed up upon hearing her aunt's voice. "What do you want, Rebecca?" "I want to apologize," said Rebecca, her voice choked up, "for what I did at the hospital. It was terrible, and I have no excuse." Emily was surprised by the genuine tone of regret. "Why are you calling now?" "Because I heard about your school, about the success it's having, and I realized that you built something incredible, much bigger than any money I was trying to take from you. And I realized I lost my family because of greed. You, Ethan, all of you. I was so afraid of having nothing that I tried to steal what you had." Emily thought carefully before answering. "Rebecca, what you did was very painful. You took advantage of me when I was most vulnerable. I know, and I deeply regret it. But," Emily continued, "I've learned that holding on to anger only hurts the person holding it. I forgive you." "Really?" asked Rebecca, surprised. "I forgive you. But that doesn't mean we'll go back to relating to each other like before. Trust is something built over time." "I understand, and thank you for giving me a chance to at least apologize." After she hung up, Emily kept thinking about the call. 2 years ago, she might have held a grudge against Rebecca, but the experience of rebuilding her life had taught her to value peace more than being right. That afternoon, Ethan came home from school. He now attended a regular school but still helped out at New Hope School, with an essay in his hand. "Look, Mom, the teacher asked us to write about our hero. Do you want to see what I wrote?" "Of course." Ethan began to read. "My hero is my mother, Emily. She doesn't have superpowers, but she did something I thought was impossible. When she lost her memory, I thought I was going to lose my mum forever. But she taught me that love is stronger than anything. Even without remembering me, she chose to love me again. And now she helps many other children through our school. She is my hero because she showed me that we can always start over and that true love is never lost. It just sometimes gets hidden." Emily was crying when Ethan finished reading. "Ethan, that is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever written about me." "It's true, isn't it?" he asked. "Every word," she confirmed, hugging her son. "And you are my hero too, you know." "Me? Why?" Because you're the one who taught me that love can overcome any obstacle. You never gave up on me, even when I didn't know who you were. Because I knew you were still my mom even if you'd forgotten, said Ethan simply. And you were right, said Emily. You were always right. That night, during the family dinner, Michael made an announcement. Everyone, I have some news to share. Good or bad? Asked Ethan, always direct. Good. Very good. The company I work for wants to partner with our school. They're going to sponsor an educational technology program. Really? Asked Emily, excited. Really? They'll provide computers, tablets, educational programs, all for free. Why? Asked Ethan. Because the school's reputation has grown a lot. Several companies want to associate themselves with successful social projects. Emily was moved. This means we can expand, help more children. Exactly, said Michael. In fact, they want our methodology to be replicated in other communities. Our methodology is going to help children in other places? Asked Ethan, impressed. Yes, it is, confirmed Emily. What started as a small dream is becoming something much bigger. Just like our love, said Ethan. It started small when you forgot, but now it's bigger than ever. Ethan's observation made Emily reflect on the journey they had been on. Truly, the love between them had grown and strengthened through the challenges. You're right, she said. Our love grew because it was tested and chose to remain. And now it's helping other families too, added Michael. Through the school, other children are receiving love and care. It's like planting seeds, said Ethan. One seed becomes a tree, and the tree makes many new seeds. Grandma Ruth, who had come over for dinner, smiled as she listened to the conversation. My philosophical family, she said affectionately. You always find the deep meaning in things. It's because we've been through deep things, said Emily. And we learned that every challenge has a hidden gift. What was the gift of your amnesia? Asked Grandma Ruth. Emily thought for a moment. The opportunity to consciously choose who I want to be and how I want to love, and the chance to discover that we are stronger than we imagine. And for us? Asked Michael. What was the gift? Learning that true love doesn't depend on memory, answered Ethan before Emily could speak. Exactly, agreed Emily. And discovering that we can overcome anything if we are together. 6 months later, the New Hope School had become a national model. Emily was invited to lecture at universities about her inclusive and innovative methodology. I can't believe I'm here, she said to Michael before a lecture at UChicago. Why not? 3 years ago, I didn't even remember studying education, and now I'm teaching university professors. That shows how much you've grown, said Michael proudly. We've grown, she corrected. Every achievement of ours belongs to the whole family. Ethan, who was now 12, accompanied her to some lectures. Mum, he said before she went on stage, remember what I said when you woke up in the hospital? What did you say? That you were still my mum, even if you'd forgotten. I was right, wasn't I? Completely right, smiled Emily. And now I can tell everyone how a 9-year-old boy taught me the most important lesson of my life. What lesson? That love is stronger than anything. During the lecture, Emily told her story to an audience of 500 teachers and educators. When she finished, she received a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Mrs. Emily, someone from the audience asked, what advice would you give to people who have lost something important in their lives? Emily thought about the question, looking at Ethan and Michael in the front row. That sometimes we lose things to find even better ones, that we are more resilient than we imagine, and that true love always finds a way back, even when everything seems impossible. But how do we know if it's worth starting over? Asked another person. Because the alternative is to stand still in the pain of what we've lost. And life is movement, it's growth, it's discovery. Even when it's painful, starting over is always better than giving up. After the lecture, several people approached to thank her and share their own stories of overcoming. An elderly woman particularly caught Emily's attention. Teacher, she said, I lost my husband 2 years ago and thought I wouldn't be able to move on. Your story gave me hope. How so? You lost your memories, but you built a new, even more beautiful life. Perhaps I can build a new life too, even without my husband." "You can," said Emily with conviction. "The love you shared hasn't disappeared. It can be the foundation for a new chapter in your life." "Thank you," said the woman with tears in her eyes. "You gave me courage." On the way home, Ethan commented, "Did you see how you helped that lady?" "I did," said Emily. "It's just like what you did for me. You gave me courage when I thought I had lost my mum forever." "And you gave me courage when I thought I didn't know how to be a mother," replied Emily. "So we helped each other," concluded Ethan. "Exactly. And now we're helping other people too." "That's why I like our story," said Ethan. "It started sad, but it's having a happy ending that helps a lot of people." Emily smiled, hearing Ethan refer to their life as our story. It had truly become a story of overcoming, love, and hope. 3 years later, at the 5th anniversary of the New Hope School, Emily was giving a speech to an audience of parents, students, teachers, and local officials. "When I woke up from the coma 5 years ago," she said, "I never imagined that losing my memory would be the beginning of the greatest adventure of my life." In the audience, Ethan, now 15, smiled proudly. Michael, with a few grey hairs but the same gentle smile, watched her with admiration. Grandma Ruth, at 80 years old, still active and involved, waved when Emily looked in her direction. "This school was born from a dream," continued Emily, "but it grew with love. The love of a family that never gave up, the love of a community that believed, and the love of children who teach us every day that learning is the greatest joy in the world. Today," she went on, "we have 150 students, 12 teachers, and our methodology is being applied in 20 schools across the country. But numbers don't tell the whole story." She paused and looked directly at Ethan. "The whole story is about a 9-year-old boy who taught me that love doesn't need memory to exist. It's about a husband who chose to love a new version of the woman he already loved. It's about a grandmother who never lost faith. And it's about hundreds of children who found here a place where they can be exactly who they are." The audience was silent, completely absorbed in her words. "You know," continued Emily, her voice growing more emotional, "for years I wondered if I would ever fully recover my memory. And today I can say that it doesn't matter anymore." She looked again at her family. "Because I discovered that we are not defined by what we remember, but by what we choose to do each day. And every day, I choose to love my son, my husband, my extended family. Every day, I choose to believe that every child deserves a chance to shine." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. A wave of memories began to flood Emily's mind. Not isolated fragments like before, but complete and vivid memories. She saw herself for the first time holding newborn Ethan, promising to always protect him. She remembered the day he took his first steps, wobbling as he ran toward her. She relived hundreds of nights singing him to sleep, thousands of hugs, countless moments of pure love. Tears began to stream down her face as the memories kept coming back. The first meeting with Michael in the library, the marriage proposal in the park where she now took Ethan to play, the day she found out she was pregnant. "Mom," said Ethan, concerned, rising from the audience. "Are you okay?" Emily smiled through the tears. "I'm more than okay, my love. I'm complete." "What happened?" asked Michael, also approaching. "I remember," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I remember everything. Your birth, Ethan. Our first kiss, Michael. Every moment we built together." The audience began to whisper, realizing they were witnessing something very special. "But you know what?" continued Emily, holding Ethan's hand and looking at Michael. "The memories that came back are beautiful, but the ones we created over the last 5 years are even more precious." "Why?" asked Ethan, moved. "Because those were chosen consciously. Every moment of love, every decision to start over, every step we took together was a deliberate choice to build something new and beautiful." Michael stepped onto the stage and hugged Emily. "How do you feel?" he whispered. "Like 2 lives have met inside me," she replied. "The woman I was and the woman I became. And both are me." Ethan also stepped onto the stage and joined the family hug. "Does this mean you remember when you taught me to ride a bike?" he asked. "I remember," smiled Emily. "You fell 3 times, but you didn't want to give up. And I promised I would never let you fall." "And you never did," said Ethan. "Even when you forgot, you never let me fall." The audience erupted into emotional applause. Many people were crying, touched by the scene they were witnessing. Grandma Ruth, with tears of joy, called out from the audience, "My family!" "My beautiful, strong family," said a voice from the audience. It was Mrs. Carter, holding the hands of her 2 grandchildren who now studied at the school. "What would you say to someone who is going through a very difficult time?" Emily wiped her tears and answered, "That difficult times are like the darkness before the dawn. They seem endless when we are in them, but always, always the light returns. And when it returns, we are stronger and wiser people." "And if the person lost something very important?" asked another parent. "Then they have 2 choices," said Emily. "To keep looking back, lamenting what they lost, or to look forward, discovering what they can gain. I chose to look forward, and I gained a life I didn't even know was possible." A girl of about 8 years old raised her hand. "Teacher, were you scared when you didn't remember us anymore?" Emily knelt on the stage to be at the child's height. "I was very scared, sweetheart. But you know what I learned? That it's normal to be scared. What isn't normal is to let fear paralyze us. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is doing what needs to be done even when you are afraid." "And how do we know what needs to be done?" "By listening to your heart," said Ethan, stepping forward before his mother could answer. "My mom always says that the heart knows even when the head is confused." "Exactly," agreed Emily. "My heart always knew that you were my family, even when my head didn't remember." The school principal, Professor Jacob, approached the stage. "Teacher Emily, on behalf of the entire school community, I would like to announce something special." "What is it?" asked Emily, curious. "The City Council approved our proposal. We are going to build an annex to serve 100 more children. And the best part, it will be fully funded by a fund created by the families you have already helped." The audience erupted in applause again. "How so?" asked Emily, surprised. "The families whose children studied here got together and created a fund to expand the school," explained Professor Jacob. "They said they want to give back the hope you gave their children." Emily was speechless. She looked at Michael and Ethan, then at Grandma Ruth in the audience, and felt her heart overflowing with gratitude. "Does this mean," she said, trying to process the information, "that our little school will be able to help even more children?" 250 children in total, confirmed the principal. "And there are plans to open a second unit next year." Ethan jumped for joy. "Mom, our little seed turned into a whole forest." Ethan's metaphor made Emily laugh through her tears. "It really did, my love. And it all started with you teaching me that love is stronger than anything." "Actually," said a familiar voice in the audience, "it all started long before that." Everyone looked and saw Margaret, the nurse who had cared for Emily in the hospital, now retired, but still with the same warm smile. "Margaret," shouted Emily, getting off the stage to hug the nurse. "How did you know about the party?" "Ethan invited me," said Margaret, smiling. "He said I was an important part of your story." "You are," said Emily, moved. "You were the one who told me that the heart remembers even when the head forgets." "And I was right, wasn't I?" said Margaret, pointing to the gathered family. "Just look at the forest that grew from that seed of love." "Aunt Margaret," said Ethan, using the affectionate nickname he had created for her, "tell everyone what you told me at the hospital." "What did I say?" asked Margaret, pretending not to remember. "That the love between a mother and her son is the strongest thing there is." "Ah, that," smiled Margaret. "And I said one more thing too." "What?" "That I had seen many miracles in that hospital, but that the greatest miracle of all is love. And you proved that I was right." The party continued for 2 more hours, with student presentations, emotional testimonials from parents, and lots of celebration. But for Emily, the most special moment was when, at the end of the night, only she, Michael, and Ethan were left alone in the school. Hard to believe all this started with a tragedy, said Michael, looking around the classrooms. It wasn't a tragedy, said Emily, surprising him. It was an opportunity in disguise. How can you say that? You almost died, you lost years of memories, and I gained a perspective I never would have had otherwise, she interrupted. I learned that we are more resilient than we think. I discovered that true love transcends memory, and most importantly, I understood that each day is a new chance to choose who we want to be. Ethan was sitting in one of the small desks, swinging his legs. Mom, can I ask a question? Always, my love. If you could go back in time and prevent the accident, would you? The question took Emily by surprise. She thought carefully before answering. You know, Ethan, that's a very deep question. Of course I didn't like suffering, and you suffered too, but, he insisted, but if I had prevented the accident, I might never have learned the most important lessons of my life. I might never have discovered how strong we are together, and maybe this school would never have existed the way it does today. So you wouldn't change anything? I would change the suffering you went through because of me, she said honestly, but I wouldn't change the growth and love that came after. Michael came closer and held her hand. You know we didn't suffer alone, right? We suffered together, and that made us closer. That's true, agreed Ethan, and in the end, everything worked out. More than worked out, said Emily, looking around the school full of children's artwork stuck on the walls, happy memories, and hope for the future. It worked out perfectly. They walked slowly to the school entrance. Emily stopped and looked back one last time. What are you thinking? Asked Michael. I'm thinking that 5 years ago when I woke up in that hospital, I didn't know who I was, and today I know exactly who I am. And who are you? Asked Ethan. I'm the mother of the wisest boy in the world, wife of the most patient and loving man there is, adopted granddaughter of the most caring grandmother of all, teacher to children who teach me something every day, and most of all, I'm a woman who learned that it's never too late to start over, and that love always, always finds a way. They left the school holding hands, a family that had been through the fire and come out stronger. The school fell silent behind them, but even in the silence, it seemed to pulse with life, hope, and love. Where are we going now? Asked Ethan. Home, said Emily. Our home, where everything started again. And tomorrow? He asked. Tomorrow we'll continue our story, said Michael. A story of love, courage, and second chances. Actually, corrected Emily, looking up at the starry sky, they're not second chances. They're first chances at a new life we've chosen to live together. And so as they walked home under the Chicago sky, Emily knew she had found not only her lost memories, but something much more valuable. The certainty that true love doesn't need a past to have a future, and that sometimes losing everything is necessary to discover what truly matters. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this journey of new beginnings and love? Have you ever been through moments when you had to rebuild your life? What was it like? Share your own story of overcoming in the comments, because every story can inspire someone who is going through a hard time. Leave your like if this story touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel to follow more stories that celebrate the strength of love and hope. Thank you so much for your company on this beautiful journey.